guys, we are going to make some whole wheat buns. I've got my ingredients laid out and ready to go, so we'll get started. I'm using a mixer. You can do this by hand and it'll work just fine. But if you have a mixer, I would suggest using it. It really cuts down on the time that it takes to do the mixing, and is way easier when the machine does, especially the kneading, than when you have to do it by yourself. So in my bowl, I have measured oil, egg, sugar, and salt. And I'm just going to turn my mixer on. I have the whisk attachment, so I'm just going to get that nice and frothy. About a minute in the mixer doing that. That's got whipped up, you're going to add in your flour and instant yeast. So this recipe calls for both white flour and whole wheat flour. I have my white flour measured out, and I'm using instant yeast. I'm not sure if you can see well, but instant yeast is really a very fine ingredient. If you're using traditional yeast, it's more like a pellet, and it has to be activated with warm water. The instant yeast can be mixed right in with the white flour. So I'm just going to dump that into my egg and oil mixture, and to that I'm adding some really hot water. So I got this as hot as the tap would allow, and I'm just dumping both ingredients in the mixer, and I'm going to turn it back on. Okay, that's going to be a fairly thin batter at this stage. I'm going to take my attachment out, and I'm going to put on my dough hook, and I'm going to start adding in the whole wheat flour now. And using a mixer makes this really an easy process, because you'll know you've got enough whole wheat flour when the dough mixture quits sticking to the edge of the bowl. I'm going to start out by adding in, I'm doing a double batch of the recipe, so you would maybe only add in 1 cup of flour. I'm going to add in 2 cups right away, and turn this on, put my top on, doesn't blow all over the place. Tell it's still quite liquidy. I'm going to add in another cup of whole wheat flour. And again, I'm just looking for the dough to change consistency and all start sticking onto my dough hook and not sticking to the sides of the bowl. Important to stop as soon as there's enough flour mixed in. Too much flour and the dough becomes really hard to shape and dries out your bun. Not near as light as it would be if you had the right amount. Just going to grab my camera here so I can show you. Here we are back at it again. I'm going to add a wee bit more. Turn it back on. Now it's clearing the sides of the bowl. I'll put my cover back on. I have enough flour in. I'm just going to turn the machine on and let it knead for 5 minutes, and I'll come back with you. Alright, my mixer's been running for 5 minutes, so I'm going to move on to the next steps in the recipe. The dough is going to be sort of sticky, really soft. I'm just going to use a little bit of cooking spray my mixing bowl and my hands so that I can get it into the mixing bowl and out of here without sticking to everything. So remove my dough hook and just sort of peeling the dough off of the dough hook and putting it back into the mixing bowl. And then you can just sort of see how soft this dough is. Just going to peel it out of my mixing bowl and put it in to my regular bowl to do the rising. Now, I meant to say earlier that I had a really hard time finding whole wheat flour. So if you are in the same position as me and you have no luck finding the whole wheat flour, I certainly can make this with all white flour. Whole wheat flour is going to make your buns more nutritious. The whole wheat is ground up and used to make whole wheat flour, has both bran and germ. And they are two of the most nutritious parts of the wheat kernel. They add B vitamins and iron and extra minerals. So if you can get your hands on some, try to make it with the whole wheat flour. If not, just regular white flour will work as well. Okay, so once you have it into your bowl, you're going to take a clean tea towel and cover it. And I'm just checking my recipe. I believe it's 1 hour that it needs to rise in the bowl. So I've preheated my oven just so it's warmed up a little bit, just because it's kind of cool in the house. I'm going to give it a nice warm place to let it rise for 1 hour. And I'll meet you back after that. Okay, your bun dough rose in the oven for 1 hour. We're now ready to pan the dough. And by that I mean form your dough into your buns, put it into a pan, and it rises for another hour. So when your bun dough has had the initial 1 hour rise, your bowl should be fairly full because the dough has risen up. You've going to now punch it down. So I've done that already, but I'll just sort of show you what I mean by that. I've just sprayed my hands with a little bit of pan cooking spray, and I'm just getting in and using my hand like a fist and punching the air out of the dough. So during the 1 hour rising time, the yeast produced carbon dioxide and filled the dough up with that expanding gas. You're now going in and sort of punching that gas out and kneading it out. Once you've got the dough more condensed, we're ready to form it into our buns. The recipe should make 18 buns. Doesn't really matter how many buns you make. What's important is that they're all the same size. So again, if you haven't already greased your hands a little bit, you're going to sort of cup your hands into the dough and cut off. Don't rip or stretch the dough. Looks like about equivalent to about a half a cup. And then you're forming your buns into little balls. Everyone kind of has their own method of forming the bun dough. I use where you put the dough in the palm of your hand and just sort of pinch over the edges and push them down with your fingers of the same hand. And what it should result in is a nice smooth top and the little pinching marks at the bottom. You're just going to keep doing this until you get all the buns formed. If you end up and you look in your pan and some buns are bigger than the others, you might have to steal a little bit of bun dough from the big ones and add it to the ones that are too small. But ultimately, we want them all the same size. Once you have all your buns formed, you're going to take a clean tea towel, cover the bun dough up, and put your pan back into a nice warm place to rise for another hour. After it's risen for an hour, you're going to have your oven preheated to 350 and bake them for about 20 minutes. They should be golden brown on the top and on the bottom when they're done. Enjoy!